Welcome to the LDN radio show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us. Today we're joined by Janie, who's from Canada, who takes LDN for complex regional pain syndrome. Thank you very much for joining us today, Janie.
My pleasure.
So, when did you start to experience this chronic pain?
I actually had high impact 2 breaks in my left foot in 2015 November, where I developed CRPS. It was also dislocated and was a complex surgery for reconstruction with hardware placed in. And I developed CRPS, which is complex regional pain syndrome, for those who don't know the short form, in January of 2016. And it was quite evident because with CRPS, the skin goes shiny, very shiny, almost like plastic, and it doesn't look real, and it swells up, and it looks kind of, my husband says it looks spongy. And it is excruciating nerve pain, which I experienced, and I had actually a functional doctor at that time in a small town in the West Kootenays of British Columbia, and she was very forward-thinking for her time at that point, where I had developed CRPS, and I had researched actually Dr. Bahari on LDN, which he started to use it in low doses for cancer, HIV, and other kind of conditions like that, but very early on days of LDN back in the 80s. And I came across him and I read about it. And I asked my doctor, what did she think of that? And she thought it was worth a try. And I was the first patient in the West Kootenays to use LDN. It's now used by hundreds of patients here. It's used for all kinds of chronic pain, MS, cancer, the list goes on. Anyways, I had started it at 1.5 milligrams for 2 weeks, and then went to 3 milligrams at 2 weeks after that. And then I found that my pain started to settle down. She also prescribed at that time, I don't know if any of your viewers are familiar with gabapentin and ketamine topical cream, which I would put at the base of my spine, and it would go down my leg and it would kill that pain. And I've been using that intermittently for flares, and recently for a more recent surgery I just had 5 weeks ago on my foot to remove the hardware, which started to begin to give me problems after no problems. And I'm a walker, so very important to have my feet working. And I just found with the LDN, I just never had any nerve pain. It was very minor. If I did have a flare and I lived a normal life, I walked, average of 2 kilometers, no problem a day. Have an active life. We had dogs, so we were always out in the bush and trails. And more recently, I had to go off my LDN to have the surgery, and automatically my CRPS returned, and they warned me that it would. And I had the surgery, and the CRPS did appear quite recently, a couple of days after the surgery. The shininess came back, the swelling, the pain. And I couldn't take any LDN because I had to be on pain medicine, and you can't conflict the two. So once I went back on the LDN 9 days after the surgery, I was off the pain medication. Immediately within 2 days, again, same results. The pain went down, the shininess started to go off, and I have had a really good result from the surgery and the hardware removal, which was pretty scary. I'm 74 years old, so I didn't know how it was going to go. But that's sort of the snapshot. And any questions, please ask. Happy to answer.
I'm just interested. The hardware they put in, obviously, you needed it to hold your foot together.
I did.
So they've taken it out. So how is your foot holding together?
Well, it's interesting. I went for private surgery because I couldn't get surgery quick enough. I actually had a screw. I was walking up from the garden and I felt a sharp pain. I knew instantly my hardware, something was wrong. It was a screw come in contact with my tendon. And I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk, and a year and a half for a consult for a surgeon was not acceptable to me with an active lifestyle. And, I consider myself a fairly fit senior. So I went private, and I went to Alberta, which is next door to BC, and had a top surgeon who knew I had CRPS. It was a challenge, but he said he had no problem working with me. He said that when he removed the hardware, it would leave 7 holes in my bones, and he had to file the bone down, and he had to remove all the tissue that had, in 9 years, covered the hardware. I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but I got to tell you, it's been very successful. He did a wonderful job. He's been an amazing doctor for me. He had to take the hardware out, 7 screws and a plate about this long, and which held my ankle and the top part of my femur bone together. And I thought, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen here? But anyways, he said my bones were so strong and such good condition that even with the work he had to do to debride all the tissue and not hit any nerves, that I would have the 7 holes, and it would take about 6 months to a year to fill in, and my ankle would be compromised, obviously. But he said if you go, slow, and you take your time and you're not impatient to, hurry your recovery, it should be 100%, no problem. And so far, I am now walking on crutches. I am in a wheelchair part-time just to get around the house to do my chores. And I'm outside, but I'm not walking per se. Like I can't go walk a block yet, but I can walk around the house a little bit on my crutches. I'm in minor pain. And he said that as far as he was concerned, it was a success. And I agree, because I know I would not be feeling right if it wasn't. So working on my diet and calcium to, help my bones fill in. And I'll get an x-ray in 4 to 6 months to see where I'm at. And he said, I will be walking again. So
Wow,
I'm very
that's
happy.
amazing.
It was worth the journey to go private.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Was it a lengthy operation?
It wasn't. I went in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I came out of recovery by noon, 4 hours. And it was stitched up. I had to have the bandages removed after 2 weeks. I have actually healed very well. Would you like to see the scar?
Oh, yes, let's have a look.
I don't know how to reverse this. How do I turn the camera around?
You press the little button near the camera.
Okay.
That's it. Oh, wow, that has healed amazingly.
I know. And I actually told him that I would be a good healer because I was the first time. And he kind of chuckled. And then I talked to him and showed him, and he said, "You weren't kidding. You are a good healer." So I'm really happy. And that's only 5.5 weeks. So I'm thinking it'll close over completely and I'll have no scar to be very visible.
Mm.
So overall, I'm glad with what my husband and I decided to go forward, to have the surgery early, to get it done. So a year and a half out of a 74-year-old's life it's a piece of life missing.
Hmm.
And to be in a wheelchair was just not acceptable. So I'm glad I pushed forward.
Oh, that's amazing. So, did you have any initial side effects when you started LDN?
No, I didn't. I didn't even know I was on it. Quite frankly, LDN doesn't, for me, have any side effects. In fact, I found it to improve my life. I had suffered with other health issues, and those kind of mitigated and went away. Today, I have great energy. I love to cook. I love to garden. I love to walk. My husband and I love adventures within the province now because we're not traveling outside of Canada at the present, and out of BC, more or less, we're staying in our own province and discovering that. And I think LDN's actually added a lot to my life, and my husband would agree. For me, it was a success. And I do see a pain doctor in British Columbia, in Nelson, BC, and she says I'm one of her best CRPS patients for how it's managed my condition. So I don't know. I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones with LDN.
What would you, if you could go back to yourself before you had that surgery, which you obviously needed, what advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now?
I would say that anybody who has a condition to research it with good resources, of course. I consider your organization one of the better ones. I also think that people shouldn't give up. I think they should try and live the healthiest life they can live. You know, you can't take a pill for everything. It's not how I think life works. I think you have to do the work yourself. And to be healthy in a senior years is a challenge for a lot of people, and they rely on medication. With LDN, I don't view it as that kind of medication. I view it as a game changer. If you do the research on LDN, which I've done lots, you know, it turns your endorphins on. And if you inject endorphins into cancer cells, it kills it. So those endorphins that it creates in your own body is amazing. I can't stop thinking about Dr. Bahari and all the work he did and his wife carried on after him. What a game changer it is, not just for chronic pain, but for other conditions as well. And MS, I think, is a huge breakthrough, and I hope it works for all those MS patients because their life is taken away from them early, usually. I've had friends that have had it and seen what it's done to them, and it's a sad thing to lose your life early on and be in a wheelchair for some of them. Yeah. So don't give up.
Well, that's wonderful. So I think we will end it there, and thank you
Okay.
so much for having joined us today and
Oh,
shared
you're
your
welcome. Thank you.
so inspirational for people, because when you're in chronic pain, it feels never ending, doesn't it?
It
You
does.
know?
And I've been in never-ending pain. I've been there. I have flares. I know what it feels like, and it's awful. It affects your mood. It affects everything around you. And to get a relief from that is like a gift from God, as far as I'm concerned. So I really hope that people understand that it's, you know, just more than taking a pill. It's a lot of things. You
Mm.
have to do the work, but it's worth it because your life is worth it.
I can remember a lady telling me she'd got MS and her pain was a 9 or a 10 every day. And when it got to a 10 for so long and she just couldn't take the pain, she would end up in hospital.
Yes,
And she was in hospital and she was on a trolley. And she said, I was in so much pain, I just couldn't bear anything. She said, and there was this person screaming out in pain. And she said, I thought, I wish they'd just make that person stop screaming because it's making me feel even worse. She
totally.
said, and then I realized that person screaming was me.
Oh, that's sad.
It is,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is sad. And you know, that pain is undescribable. Everybody experiences it differently. And I relate to that.
Mm.
I relate to
Well,
that.
thank you very much, and let us know how your holes heal. Be very
Yes, I
interesting.
will. I will. And my family's from Britain. I have roots in Britain. I have family in the Isle of Wight, and it's just true to my heart here. So thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Linda. Bye-bye. Take care, everyone. God bless.
Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, at ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.